StockPulse News Debrief. In mining, I've got Arizona Silver, that's AZS, in the Toronto Venture, as it completes its first exploration work at its new Sycamore Canyon Gold-Silver project in Graham County, Arizona. I've got with me now the president and CEO, Greg Hahn. I want to have him kind of run through the news here. Greg, appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day here. If you can, why don't you go ahead and you got some favorable news here. You did a geophysical survey and complete some rock chip sampling. Why don't you go ahead and run through the high points of the release?
Sure. Well, I'll back up a little bit by just reviewing the previous press release on this property, which indicated that I think something around 30 samples collected by the underlying landowner averaged about 0.05 ounces per ton gold and about 2.5 to 3 ounces per ton silver. And that's an average of some much higher values with some much lower values. But the bottom line is that everywhere they sampled on this very prominent breccia structure carried gold and silver. So I asked the landowner, I said, what would you like us to do with this? And he said, well, the first thing we need to do is some geophysics. I said, we'll do that. And then we need to do some additional channel sampling. We'll do that. And then we need to do some drilling. I said, we'll do that. So we cut a deal on the property with the understanding that we'd get out there and hit it hard. So in the first month, we completed this initial geophysical survey that I have referenced here in today's press release. And it actually returned results better than I anticipated, in that the responses, certainly everything that we see in outcrop, and the outcrop's kind of spotty, so you have to use your imagination to connect the dots of the outcrops, but the geophysics does that for you. It connects the dots beautifully, and we ran lines on 25-meter centers, so they're relatively close spaced lines. And we have this anomaly from the northernmost line all the way to the southernmost line, which is a distance of 600 meters. And most notably is outcrop stops about 200 meters from the southernmost line, and yet we pick up this anomaly beneath alluvium, continuing from where we last see it in outcrop to the end of the grid that we ran. So we're pretty excited about that there's a very prominent structure. We should be posting that geophysical map to the website if it hasn't been posted already, so that anybody can go look at it, and you'll see how prominent and how long and continuous this anomaly is. So on the heels of completing that, then we proceeded to do some additional sampling, both channel sampling where we can cut a channel, and spot sampling where it doesn't really warrant it. And we collected 98 rock chip samples and have submitted those to the lab. Part of the objective here is to be able to see if we can correlate what carries high gold and or high silver and other metals, because we know from old historic sampling on the property that there's appreciable lead and zinc in the system locally too. So what we're trying to do is get a good understanding of the geochemistry of the target and compare it to the geology, so we can say this correlates with this, and then make some intelligent decisions on where we want to drill our first series of holes.
And in the release you make mention some similarities to the Comstock lode. Why don't you go ahead and talk about that?
Yes. The Comstock lode, of course, is the granddaddy of all epithermal gold-silver deposits in the United States, but almost all of the ounces there, and there have been 8 million ounces of gold and like 200 million ounces of silver mined from the Comstock lode, but almost all of that was mined before 1900. And so there's not a lot of current information available on the Comstock. And there's one geologist who I met in the 80s when he was doing his PhD on it. He's just written a summary article based on like 30 years of studying the Comstock. It's out, published, and it's a great summary for those of us who are out looking for another Comstock, because it kind of tells you what it didn't look like at the top of the ore zones. And he makes it very clear that the upper parts of some of the ore zones there, you can barely detect any gold, you can barely detect any silver. It really looks like brecciated, silicified quartz zone. And we have that in spades, plus we have gold, silver, lead, and zinc. So I think we are at that interface between the barren top and the beginning of the zone where precious metals and base metals were deposited, just peeking up out of the ground. And an interesting fact about this property, our property, is that there's probably about 150 feet, or only 45 meters of relief on this structure, on this target. And when you get to the very top, you have weak silver. When you're in the middle, you get strong silver and weak gold. And when you get to the bottom of that 150 feet, or only 40 meters or so, you have stronger gold and still strong silver. So it looks like you're seeing some of that vertical zoning in that little bit of relief that you get from one end of the zone to the other. And it looks very much like, the rocks look like Comstock, the metal endowment looks like Comstock, the alteration is like Comstock. So we're pretty excited that there's a chance to stick some holes into something that could deliver Comstock-like grades.
Yeah, speaking of dropping drill holes, any timetables on when drilling might commence?
Well, yeah, we're thinking probably late summer. The worst thing to do is run out there and put some holes in the wrong place. We did the geophysics. Now we're going to get the geochemistry in. When we get that in, we'll marry the two and look at where the best targets appear to be. And then we have to permit with, in this case, it's U.S. Forest Service, permit an access road and drill pads. And that'll probably take a couple of months by the time you get the permit and post the bond. So let's say we get the results back in May. By the end of May, we're ready to decide where we want to put our holes. By the 1st of June, we submit our permit application. By the end of July, we're ready to drill, something like that.
Okay. Greg Hahn, President, CEO, Arizona Silver. That's AZS on the venture. Greg, appreciate the time, and we'll certainly look forward to getting an update from you as you figure out when those drills are going to be turning.
Yeah, be happy to do that. Thank you for calling.